Hola, people. Well, that was a good introduction, now was it? This video, I am going to focus on just connecting your audience to your main character or just characters in general. The inspiration for this video actually came from Rogue One. When I watched it, I realized I didn't give a crap about any of those characters, and they all died at the end, spoiler, and well, we never really cared. And so I was thinking, well, what are some good ways that we can actually connect with our characters and not be so focused on the plot? So how do we connect with somebody normally in the real world? Normally in life we connect with them because of common interests, beliefs, or perspectives. But sometimes in a movie or a story, we don't have that privilege of being able to connect in that same way. What are some things that can help us connect with the character? And the best way I found out is something called vulnerability. If you make your characters vulnerable to us, we naturally will let our walls down and be able to connect with them, also being vulnerable with them. I've constructed a thing called the vulnerability pyramid. Sounded pretty vulnerable. In this pyramid, first thing we have is the first impression. That doesn't necessarily define, or it does define, but it doesn't connect us with your character quite yet. But first impressions are very important, and we're gonna get in more depth to all of these later in the video. Second are likes and dislikes. The third tier is wants and desires. The fourth tier is aspirations and passions, also known as what is their cause, and the obsession / motivation. And the last one is goals and objectives, and I'll explain the big dotted line later on. The larger the area, the more connected we should be with your character. This pyramid is supposed to show when these things are supposed to take place when you're developing your story. You don't want to start with obsession and a motivation and immediately go to your goal. You want to actually work us into it. When you get to know somebody, you don't go straight to, you could know somebody and know their goal right away, but I'm meaning when you're starting to make a deeper connection with somebody, you first get to know them. What are their likes? What are their interests? This or that, and that kind of connection helps us be able to have a deeper connection with our characters. Oh, so number one, first impression. It is very important, it says so right there. Also, establishes the tone of a character. So certain characters, you know, who is this character? How should we feel about this character generally? Is this character a trustworthy character, or is he more of a complex character? One thing I want to point out is a difference between complexity versus randomness. Don't just have your characters be random and their introduction is random. Have something that focuses on your character. If they're ominous or dangerous, then have their introduction be such a way. If they're clumsy, if they are, I don't know, wise, let their introduction be part of who they are, so we kind of get a sense of what your character is. Because again, with randomness, it throws off our feel for your story, and we won't be able to, you know, connect the pictures or connect the dots together, and we'll just be confused on why he wears a certain way or a certain thing, why does he have his hair a certain way, why does he act a certain way, when it really doesn't connect to anything in the story or the actor, him or herself. Number two, on page 2, likes and dislikes. Your characters are human. You have to remember this, especially for you plot-driven story writers. Characters are not just there to service your plot. They actually have likes and dislikes, just like you do. Just imagine if somebody treated you like some plot device and, you know, forced you through the story just to get the story across. You wouldn't be so happy, so neither would your audience. So establish what your character likes and dislikes, even if they don't necessarily come through the story, but it will help you define who this character is, so you don't have to make things up or make random things for your characters and whatnot. Be very simple. These are just simple likes and dislikes. An example would be clouds. I love clouds. I love trees. That's why we're here in the forest instead of in some dusty room or whatever. Balloons, dry skin. You can like hate or love dry skin for whatever weird reason. Math. But at the same time, don't be necessarily random with what these likes or dislikes are. If a like or dislike doesn't really service the story, because you have to remember these things have to connect with each other, or at least they should, so that you actually have a fuller connective picture with your story, so the audience just feels satisfied, to just be honest. So I think there's a bug on me. I just squished it. Indiana Jones, he hates snakes. And so what happens when he goes into that temple thingy? There are snakes. But, you know, that is a little bit of a payoff right there. And it just kind of solidifies those things in your story. And we really like, people just really like those kind of, those connections. All right, anyways, next one, number 3, wants and desires. So this actually starts to give us a little bit of a window into your character. And so you want to make sure that this is definitely not random, but this starts to define who your character really is inside. Something that I've noticed that is really good is to have your character have conflicting wants and desires. In Gladiator, he wants to go home, but also wants to serve Rome. And so he has to have this decision of, okay, well, which one should I go for? Should I compromise? And he's like, well, and he eventually does decide that for the better of his home, he better serve Rome so that his home can be safe, if I remember this movie correctly. But also at the same time, these things are in service with the plot. So when he chooses this other route, then the plot can move along and service that. All right, aspirations and passions, and I call this also what is their cause. This one's a little bit more difficult to explain, so I'll just go straight into some examples. So a passion could be for women's rights, or discovering new knowledge, feed the poor, enlightenment, educate the masses, spread kindness. Your character has a zeal for something. What is it? This isn't necessarily for a plot. In all of us people, there's this tick that we have, that we just have a natural desire for something to go a certain way. This is going to motivate how we just operate as a human. So like for me, I would be more naturally inclined to see the truth about something. Is this truthful? Is this a truthful way to look at something or whatnot? And so it's just kind of my I guess aspiration, or what's my cause, is to discover truth or express truth or let people know the truth. And so that's like my personal thing. That may not be necessarily to a plot, or I mean it can, but it may not come through in a plot, but it'll definitely like motivate me to do certain things or act a certain way. That's different than the fourth one, motivations and obsessions. That's not the same kind of motivation that I'm talking about in aspirations/passions. This is just who you are as a character. Certain kind of like events come to you, and your internal clockwork motivates you to want to go one way versus another. So it's a little complicated and difficult to explain, but hopefully that gives you an idea, and that can give you some real good complexity with your character, so you don't have to, well, you can have more complex characters. 4 and 5, the reason why I put the dotted line through there is because these are more closely related to your plot. The 1 through 3 are not necessarily related to your plot, but they come through in your plot. They kind of like are squeezed out or massaged out. But 4 and 5 are kind of like the backbone, the whole reason why we're here basically. We're here because of the obsession of the character and his goal, pretty much. Yeah, it's far more focused. They could be changed or have more than one main obsession or goal, but must be done very carefully, because we are now wanting to root for your character, and if you flip-flop it too much, then we won't really know what's their goal, why are they doing this, what's their purpose again, and then we kind of lose track. And something that also, the reason why I was wanting to start this, because of the Rogue One movie that I saw, we jump right into the obsession and goal, basically, and we don't go through, or 1 through 3, and just really establishing who this girl is. I don't even remember her name. All I know is Stardust. Her name was like Kylo Ren or something like that. So they just jump right into that obsession and goal, but we've never really been able to empathize with this character or connect, and so how can we necessarily care that, or what this goal is? And so this is to get you to hopefully get your audience to care about your character for their goal and our obsession, or the other way around. Anyway, so going on to the next page. Littering is bad. I'll get that later. Anyways, number 4, obsessions and motivations. Parenthesis around the S. You want to make sure that they're a little bit more focused. All right, what motivates your character to take action in the plot? The plot can't move forward until they decide. What is their motivation/obsession to move forward? Very important. So basically, makes your character active. What are they doing to, I mean, like, their absolute obsession in the plot? It gets them to overcome their internal struggles. And so, yeah, it makes them active and the plot can actually move along. Don't make your plot move until your character makes the decision to move. Don't make them the victim of just actions, random things. Like, for instance, when I was trying to make my story, I had my main character start his story because a band of assassins came in and he just was the victim of it, and he happened to run away, and now he's into the story, and further along he never really decided anything. He just kind of was part of the process. He was my plot device, basically. But if you have your character first choose, now you can still have a band of assassins come in, but he has to choose in his heart that, like, you know what, all right, I'll overcome these personal struggles, or whatever they may be, and like, okay, I'll choose this. And then maybe you have the assassins come in, but they've already, like, the character has already decided it. And so we are now starting to step into personal grounds with your character to be able to connect with them and their goal and whatnot. And so when the assassins come, there's like, oh no, you know, it's a little bit more, I guess, impactful, and like, we hope your character doesn't die. Let's see here. Fuels their goals and objectives. So their obsession / motivation is closely tied and related to their goals and objective. It fuels the goals and objective. So in Gladiator, Maximus's first obsession was home, but then directs to revenge against Commodus. But also his absolute obsession was like for the glory of Rome. My personal opinion is that they weren't very strong in defining his desire to see Rome be a beautiful nation. It was more, I felt like it was more geared towards his family, and so whenever he had moments to reveal his passion for Rome, I didn't feel it. But anyways, that was supposed to be in there. And Ithiliad in my story, he is fueled by Iwan. I didn't put a T, but it doesn't matter anyway because you can't see it. So Ithiliad, he is fueled by I want to know who I am, but in the story it changes over to I want to be who I am, but he has to first accept that identity rather than just like, oh, now I know who I am, now let's just jump right into it. But like, wait, I am, he ends up being the heir to a race, but it pokes to his flaw, like, wait a minute, I don't like expectation and given onto me and all that stuff. And so now he has to accept this identity that who he is, which will change his new motivation and passion, motivation and obsession. Be like, okay, this is who I am, let's charge after it. So that's what I would say. If you want to change obsession / motivation, then have them be interconnected in some way. Now Gladiator, they are interconnected in a way, just a little bit, because one is not consequented. That's a word. Commodus was involved with the other obsession that he was, Maximus had. And so there is a connection between the change of obsession. And so the last one is goals / objectives. This is basically what we're rooting for. If we have no idea what your goal is, or what your character's goal is, how can we root for them? Now, you can have your, Rogue One individual be having this goal, but if we haven't established this connection with them, it's just awkward, I guess I should say, for the lack of a better term. And whatnot. So must establish characters we care about or we won't care about their goal. Yep, everyone went over that. There can be sub-goals. Oh yeah, so sub-goals are great and all, whatnot, and especially for like TV shows, because TV shows you don't necessarily, there's always going to be that one over big goal that they're going to try to achieve, but then there's all these like sub-goals and whatnot. Great if you're looking for a movie or story. You can have a sub-goal where you're like, oh, we need to save so-and-so so we can get back on the path and whatnot. But those are kind of more plot things, not necessarily who your character is and what really is what they're passionate about. Sub-goals, I guess I would say, equals plot, but the main objective and goal of the story is both plot and your character. I call my dog babies. Okay. My dog should be in a circus. The main goal can change, but try to keep it to 2 max and have the main goal cover most of the story. So our main goal, like in Gladiator, is, revenge or taking over Commodus, but like really it was to save Rome, but it was more focused and emphasized on avenging Maximus's family by having revenge over Commodus. So I like to have two goals just because like your character in the very beginning of your story is always going to have kind of a general first goal, but then it gets just pooped on by, you know, the story, and now we have to do this other thing. But don't have it random, like this random complete shift, but have the second goal be the main one, or just have one goal all the way through, because that's the one we want to be rooting for. And if we have no idea what your goal is, or if you have too many goals, then we're just not going to be able to connect with your character at all, or at least be able to root for them. Yeah, so the character's main goal should, the character's main goal should demand all of their attention. So this is, their goal is their obsession almost, pretty much. They are going to get this goal regardless of the circumstances. That also kind of makes us root for them. It's like, you know, all of the trials that they're going to face, either it be facing a judge or facing a fear or internal flaw, most likely, but I don't know, anything, like they're willing to face all the odds for their passion, and that should actually inspire us in some way. All right, we're almost there. 1 and 2, I have a thing particular to them. Throughout the story, reveal new insights into your characters, likes/wants. This connects us with your characters more. So as the plot grows, just have a little more opportunities to just reveal your character to us, or characters, really, because like this whole thing goes to all characters, but the things more focused about goals and whatnot are focused to your main character or characters, depending on how your story is wired. But definitely every time that the plot gets farther, what are some ways that we can see more into this character? I mean, very simple things. Likes and dislikes and wants and desires are not plot driven. Don't expositionally dump these things on us. Yes, imagine someone walking up to you and saying a whole bunch of things about themselves, saying, I like clouds, I like puppies, I want the world to be a better place, I love ice cream, I really hate banana skins, or whatever. You know those people where they just dump all of this stuff on you. Now, we'll say if you want to use that kind of character in your story, go ahead and do that. Just make sure it fits with your story. It's not just random. Yeah, like when people give you all this information, you haven't had the time to like ingest it, I guess you could say, and you forget half of it, and it's just kind of awkward, and well, what are you supposed to do with it? And so in stories where they just like dump all this exposition on you, about who this person is and where they came from and since those things were not revealed as the character grows through the story, you couldn't grow with the character through those events, and so you really don't care. So you want to make sure your audience grows with your character through the story, and as things are revealed, it's like a little bit of information for us to go, ooh, I get to connect, or like I get to be a part of this moment with that character. That allows us to connect and whatnot. A few little insights into someone can go a long way. All right, so to wrap this up about vulnerability, the more vulnerable you make a character, the faster we connect. This is why we absolutely adore cute puppies. But because they're so vulnerable, all of our walls just get crushed, and we just welcome them in. There's no like fear of harm and whatnot. However, find the right balance for your characters. More vulnerable characters can come across as more shallow, while reserved characters can come across as unapproachable. So you have to think like what's best for your character. So a good way to get this into perspective, imagine Legolas versus Merry and Pippin. So Legolas is very reserved and whatnot, but it kind of defines his character. But he also seems a little unapproachable in a way. He's like this ancient being. And Merry and Pippin, you can come jump in a bar with them, basically, and just have a good time, because just how they behave and how they reveal themselves, or how they are revealed, allows us to connect with them in that special way. Yeah, their level of vulnerability defines them. But you also have to think this as well. Less vulnerability forces the audience to invest more in a character, while complete vulnerability does the work for us. To have the deepest connection, make us invest in the character as well as make them vulnerable. So For instance, like there's a reason why the Grey Havens was such a touching moment, because there was a good balance between vulnerability and, I guess, non-vulnerability, but having us invest in the character just enough so that we actually have ownership over it. You want to have your audience to have some ownership of just your characters. So a good way to have your audience connect with your characters in a deeper way is to let them kind of work for it, and yeah, they feel some ownership over it. So like even Aragorn can be a likable character just because he has some vulnerability, but he's also reserved like Legolas. But that balance allows us to kind of invest in him a little bit more, makes us have to pull out some dollars and actually say, okay, I'm going to invest in this. And so when there's that return, we feel good about it. But also is another thing, you don't want to just do stupid things with your characters. If you get us invested in them and then you do this very irrelevant turn, then we can feel betrayed. So you don't want to betray your audience. You can surprise them, but don't betray them. So for instance, like with Rogue One, I didn't feel betrayed that they were all dead. I didn't care that they were all dead. But at the same time, if I was able to invest in these characters, I don't think I would feel betrayed, but I definitely wanted to feel the sacrifice that those characters did for the plans, to get the plans out there. But you know how movies are nowadays, they're all cookie cutter and they're here to get you your money. And so we make the plot really plotty and we bask in your nostalgia and have really thin characters, because why invest in that? And there's my soapbox, because I'm on a log. This is my soap log. So those are my last words. I encourage you to make good characters. They make a huge difference in your story. I keep reading just from different authors that good characters can cover a multitude of plot sins, and so make us like your characters. Have us invest in your characters. It is difficult, but it's doable. A great thing to do for yourself is to go through these questions and answer them as you would as a character, and just to really define, like, what are these things? What do they mean? And so you can transfer them to your characters and figure out what fits for them, but also be sure that these characters are not you in another light, you know, another dimension. Another great thing would probably be to look up Myers-Briggs and read those little personality things, because right there they give you so many personality opportunities, and you can just kind of pick and choose whatever fits in your story. Go out and watch people, see how they respond, see how they talk. Why do they talk a certain way without actually revealing the subtext of what's going on, or whatever situation that they're in? How do they respond when they're angry? How do they respond when they're elated? You know, storytelling is really a life experience. The more we grow older, the more we are able to put those into stories and really make stories deeper and meaningful and impactful. So a passion of mine is to get people to make stories that are meaningful and passionate and awesome and not plotty and thin and pathetic. So I'm stuck.